The stars looked calm, but war had torn them apart. Far from Earth, the last human outpost floated in silence. Its defense shields were gone. Its walls were broken. Its people were dead. Only one soldier remained. Captain Rhea Morgan stood alone inside the command room of Fort Sola, watching the final enemy ship appear on the screen. It was shaped like a silver claw, its surface smooth like glass but stronger than steel. It belonged to the Velthari Ascendancy, the most feared race in the galaxy. They called themselves gods. They believed humans were a mistake. And now, they had almost won. Rhea's fingers were bloody. Her uniform was torn. Behind her, dead crew members lay in silence. She pressed a button on the panel, and a voice link opened to Earth. "This is Captain Morgan. Fort Sola has fallen. We held them for 6 hours. That's all we had." There was no answer from Earth, just a faint hum. She took a shaky breath. "They're coming," she whispered, not just to Earth, but to the stars, to the ancestors, to anyone still listening. Then, everything went black. Far away on Earth, deep under the surface, a special room came to life. Red lights blinked. A computer system that hadn't activated in centuries suddenly spoke. "Last wall has fallen. Protocol Abyss is now available." At the Earth Council bunker, leaders from the surviving human nations were already in the middle of a heated discussion. "We can still negotiate with the Velthari," shouted Minister Khalid from the African Union. "They don't want peace. They want us gone," replied Chancellor Lai of the Eastern Confederacy. "Maybe we evacuate the last cities," said President Monroe, voice shaking. "Go underground. Hide." General Mira Vasquez slammed her hand on the table. Her voice was cold. "They found every colony, every hidden moon, every station. There is no place left to hide." The room went silent. Then the screen behind them flickered. A line of text appeared. "Protocol Abyss, classified. Access level Omega." Eyes turned to Mira. She stepped forward. "I was hoping we'd never open that file," she said. "But now, we have no choice." "What is Protocol Abyss?" Monroe asked. Mira's face looked like stone. "It's not a weapon. It's something we buried, something we promised never to use." "You mean a super weapon?" Mira shook her head slowly. "Worse." She tapped the screen. A map appeared, showing deep points under Earth's crust, locations hidden since before modern records. Red lights blinked over each one. "These sites hold living things," Mira said. "They were created during the first expansion wars, centuries ago, back when we thought we needed monsters to fight monsters." "Are they human?" someone asked. "They were," Mira replied. "Now, we don't know what they are." Council members looked at each other. Fear filled the room. "And if we release them?" President Monroe asked. Mira stared into the glowing screen. "Then the Velthari will learn what real fear feels like." On a hidden moon near the Velthari homeworld, Supreme Ascendant Vekor floated above a pool of starlight. His mind was linked with the voices of thousands of Velthari commanders. "The humans are nearly finished," said one voice. "They are stubborn insects," another added. Vekor remained silent until a shadow passed across the pool. He opened his eyes. Something was wrong. He felt a ripple, a disturbance in space and thought. Old, cold memories surfaced. "No," Vekor whispered. "It cannot be." He turned to the priests behind him. "Send all eyes to Earth. Now." Back on Earth, deep under the ice of Antarctica, the first block cracked open. A hiss escaped from the ancient vault. Frost melted. Metal groaned. And something inside moved. A massive figure, humanoid but twisted, opened its glowing eyes. It had no name. Only a code. Titan 001. Oblivion. In the dark, it spoke its first words in 300 years. "Who do I destroy?" Earth trembled. The Velthari watched in silence, and the galaxy held its breath. The last wall had fallen. Now, the abyss would answer. Under the frozen ice of Antarctica, something massive began to wake. Titan 001, codename Oblivion, stepped forward from its dark prison. Its body was metal, but its core was alive. Part human, part machine, and part something else. Its glowing red eyes scanned the chamber. Ice cracked with every step. The chains holding it were now just dust. Lights in the control room blinked as Earth's military leaders watched from a safe location deep underground. General Mira Vasquez stood with her hands behind her back, her voice calm. "Wake the others." Technicians looked at her with fear in their eyes. "General, are you sure?" "The Titans were locked away for a reason. If we lose control—" "We already lost control," Mira said. "We lost Earth's colonies. We lost Mars. We lost the fleets. All that's left is this." In the north, under an old mountain range, another vault hissed open. Steam poured out. A beast taller than 10 men rose from black water. This one was called Titan 002. Wraith. Its body was slim, fast, covered in dark plates that shimmered like oil. Its first sound was a low, inhuman growl. Elsewhere, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, another eye opened. Titan 003. Maelstrom, a creature shaped like a man, but with skin like scales and veins that glowed blue. Together, they were the Titans, built long ago in secret labs. Forgotten, hidden, feared, and now, released. On the Velthari flagship above Earth's moon, Supreme Ascendant Vekor watched the energy spikes rise from the planet. He leaned forward. "What is that?" he asked, voice sharp. A smaller Velthari priest answered. "Unknown life forms. Biomechanical. Large. Old. Human." Vekor asked. The priest paused. "Not fully. We believe they used human DNA as a base, then built something else. Something ancient." Another voice broke through. "More signals, my lord, rising from all parts of Earth. It's not just one. It's a network." Vekor's face went pale. His pride cracked for the first time in 1,000 years. "Are the gods of Earth waking?" Titan 001 stood at the edge of a shattered cliff in South America. Mountains shook as it walked. Below, a Velthari forward base was busy preparing for invasion. Their soldiers laughed. Their ships recharged. They didn't see it coming. Oblivion jumped. The ground cracked when it landed. Velthari troops screamed as the red-eyed monster charged through them like fire through dry grass. Its fists broke tanks. Its voice, half growl, half roar, froze the blood of even the bravest enemy. One Velthari captain tried to run. Oblivion grabbed him and held him up. "You killed the children," the Titan said, voice deep like thunder. "You broke the code." I was just following orders," the captain began. Oblivion crushed him without another word. On the other side of the planet, Titan 002 ran like a shadow through the night. Wraith moved too fast for the eye. In a hidden lab, it found Velthari scientists working on stolen human tech. They looked up just in time to see the blur of black rip through them. No mercy. No escape. General Mira watched the satellite feeds from Earth HQ. 3 Titans active. 2 more waking. She turned to the council. They attacked a hospital ship. Children. Doctors. Unarmed people. Mira said. "So we gave them monsters." President Monroe stood slowly. "Will they protect us?" she asked. Mira gave a dark smile. "They're not here to protect. They're here to make the galaxy afraid of us again." High in orbit, the Velthari Council ship shook. Reports came in from across Earth's surface. Entire battalions gone. Outposts vanished. Velthari ships crashed from the sky, torn apart by things that couldn't be tracked. The Velthari second commander looked up at Vekor. "My lord, what do we do?" Vekor didn't answer for a moment. Then he whispered the words no one expected. Retreat. But we're the Ascendancy, the commander said. We are the gods of this galaxy. Vekor stared at the screen, watching the red glow of Oblivion's eyes rise into the smoke. Then we just met something worse than gods. But Earth wasn't finished. Back in the bunker, Mira received another alert. General, a tech officer said, voice nervous, we have another activation signal. It's not a Titan. What is it? It's from Sector 13, the Black Cell. Mira turned slowly. No one was supposed to know about that. We didn't wake it, General, the tech said. It woke itself. Mira's heart skipped a beat. Far below, where even the Titans had never gone, something ancient, older than Earth's wars, older than its leaders, opened its eyes. It didn't roar. It didn't scream. It simply smiled. Deep under the Earth's surface, where no sunlight had ever touched, a door opened. It wasn't a metal door. It wasn't part of any bunker or lab. This door was older than everything else, carved from black stone, glowing with faint golden light. It was not made by humans. Behind it, something waited. It had waited for a very long time. Now, it was smiling. In the command center, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. General Mira Vasquez looked at the monitor. Her face turned pale. Sector 13 opened itself. She asked, voice quiet. Yes, General, said the tech. We didn't touch anything. No signal was sent. It just woke up. Mira's hands trembled. She had fought wars, seen cities fall, seen people scream as alien ships rained fire. But this was different. This wasn't a Titan. This wasn't a machine. This was the other thing. The one even Earth's leaders had promised never to speak about again. Veltheri Ascendant Vekor stood frozen aboard his flagship. His eyes were fixed on the new signal. What is it? He demanded. The priest beside him trembled. We don't know. It's not in any record. Not even from the war archives. But it's strong. Stronger than anything. Stronger than the Titans. Impossible, Vekor growled. No, the priest whispered. It's worse than impossible. It's wrong. This energy doesn't belong in this galaxy. Maybe not even in this universe. Below the Earth, inside Sector 13, black mist poured out like smoke made from shadows. The being inside was tall, taller than the Titans. Its skin wasn't metal or flesh. It looked like moving ink. Its eyes were empty, but still glowing white. Its smile was small and gentle, but terrifying. It stepped forward. The walls shook. The cameras went dark. No signal returned. Back in the control room, all screens that showed Sector 13 went blank. General, it's cut us off. Mira didn't blink. Let it come. We have no other choice now. Across Earth, the Titans paused. They stopped killing. They turned slowly toward the same direction. They felt it. The smiling one. Even Oblivion, the strongest and oldest Titan, stepped back once. His voice, deep and strange, whispered just one word. Brother. The smiling one stepped out of Sector 13 and looked at the sky. The clouds above it parted. The moon dimmed. Veltheri ships in low orbit tried to scan the strange being. The scans failed. Some ships exploded without warning. Others fell from orbit, burning across the sky like stars crashing to Earth. Commander Vekor saw it from his ship. It's looking at us, he whispered. Through the sky, through space. The priest fell to his knees. It sees everything, my lord. It sees past, future, thought, fear. It feeds on fear. The ship's crew froze. Every one of them began to feel cold, then hot, then sick. Some dropped dead. One officer stared into nothingness and screamed until he lost his voice. On Earth, in the ruins of what used to be New Paris, Titan 002 Wraith kneeled, not in pain, not in fear, but in respect. The smiling one had returned, not as a soldier, not as a monster, but as the final weapon. In a hidden Veltheri research station near Jupiter, a recording from an old war surfaced. It was forbidden, locked away for millennia. The audio crackled with age. An alien voice spoke, old and afraid. If Earth ever uses that one, if they ever release the one that smiles, do not fight. Do not run. Just pray your death is fast. Back on Earth, the smiling one walked past a shattered field where Veltheri soldiers had tried to fight. They had been brave. They had weapons. They had armor. They didn't even scream. They just stopped moving. One soldier, still alive, crawled on the ground. Blood leaked from his mouth. He looked up and whispered, "What are you?" The smiling one bent down and whispered in a soft voice, "I am the reason your gods are silent." Then he placed a hand on the soldier's head. The soldier smiled and faded into dust. General Mira stood at the edge of a tall cliff, watching it all from far away. She didn't send orders anymore. No one could control this now. She didn't even try. She only whispered, "We called the Titans, but now we've called the storm behind the storm." Vekker's flagship began to shut down. Systems failed. Lights died. The engine froze mid-flight. "Retreat," he shouted. But it was too late. A deep voice, not from the ship, not from any speaker, echoed in the heads of every Veltheri on board. "You lit the fire. Now drown in the smoke." Then the ship exploded. No weapon, no missile, just vanished. Across the galaxy, in distant systems that hadn't even joined the war, lights dimmed. Communications went silent. Empires paused. Whispers spread. Earth had called its monsters, and one of them had smiled. The sky over Earth was no longer blue. It was filled with swirling dark clouds, flashes of lightning, and something more, something that didn't belong. Every satellite orbiting the planet had gone silent. Every enemy ship above Earth had either fled or been destroyed without warning. And yet, the smiling one had not spoken again. It only walked. Every step left behind cracks in the ground, black veins of energy that spread like spiderwebs. The land beneath it wasn't dying. It was changing. No one understood what it was becoming, but everyone felt it. Even the Titans stood still. Oblivion, the first Titan, stood alone on a snowy mountain in Siberia. His body was covered in battle scars from thousands of years, but now he trembled, not from fear, but from memory. He had met the smiling one once, a long time ago, in the war that never made it into the records. He closed his eyes and whispered in his low mechanical voice, "The storm walks again." Then he turned and began to move, but not toward battle. He was going to kneel. In the Veltheri Council chamber, chaos ruled. The Empress screamed, "Why weren't we told? Why didn't the archives warn us about this being?" An elder priest, shaking with fear, said, "Because even writing its name was dangerous. Long ago, when our ancestors first touched the stars, they saw Earth from afar and felt something, watching. The scholars erased everything. They feared that knowledge alone would awaken it." The Empress stared at the image now projected across the chamber. Earth, glowing with black and gold cracks, and one figure walking through the ruins like a shadow wrapped in fire. "You mean to tell me Earth kept this thing hidden from everyone?" "No," the priest whispered. "Earth didn't hide it from us. Earth hid it from itself." In a broken city, far from human bases, Veltheri ground troops tried to regroup. Commander Retin barked orders. "Form the shield line. Aim high. Whatever comes, we face it together." But the soldiers didn't respond. They just stared at the road ahead. The smiling one had arrived. No weapons fired. No one screamed. A strange silence fell over everything. Then the soldiers dropped their guns and began to cry. Not because they were weak, but because something deep inside them, something primal, knew. This was not a battle. This was the end. In orbit above Mars, a lone Veltheri general sent a final message. To the stars beyond, do not approach Earth. Do not send ships. Do not even look toward Sol. The war is over. The galaxy is no longer safe, not because Earth won, but because Earth stopped holding back. Then his ship self-destructed. Back on Earth, Titan 006, Fury, tried to speak with the Smiling One. He opened his comms and said, "What is your mission?" The Smiling One turned, slowly, and looked up at the Titan. Its smile did not change. "I am the mission." Then, with a simple motion, it raised one hand. The sky above split open. No weapon fired. No ship moved. But far away, on a distant Veltheri colony planet, all power shut down. The air became heavy. The stars seemed to vanish from the night sky. The colony was never heard from again. At the United Human Defense Base, Mira watched as more data came in. Another Veltheri fleet, 300 warships, was gone. No wreckage, no battle logs, just gone. A young soldier beside her said quietly, "We asked for help, but I think we asked for something more dangerous than the enemy." Mira nodded. "We didn't call a soldier. We called a god that forgot what mercy means." Far underground, in Vault 0, an ancient human archive sealed long before the Titan program, a warning lit up for the first time in human history. A single sentence flashed in red across every screen. "If the Eastorum Waldokis close the gates." But it was already too late. There were no gates left to close. In the heavens above, other alien races watched in horror. They had stayed silent during the war, thinking it was just another conflict between powers. Now, they whispered, "What has Earth done?" They were losing. They were desperate. They didn't just fight back. They summoned something. They call the monsters. "No," an ancient voice said from the Council of Elders in the Andromeda expanse. They didn't call monsters. They called what even monsters fear. The Smiling One walked until it reached the graveyard of destroyed Titan shells. Hundreds of massive metal bodies, broken from past wars, rested in the dust. It raised both hands slowly. The wind stopped. Time felt slow. Then, one by one, the Titan shells began to rise, rebuilding themselves, reactivating, not as weapons, but as vessels, for something darker, something older, something angry. The new Titan's eyes glowed gold and black. Their voices boomed, not with machines, but with hunger. And the Smiling One stood in front of them, arms open. "Now," it whispered, "let's show them what storms truly are." The sky didn't return to normal. In fact, nothing was normal anymore. Across Earth's shattered surface, the wind didn't blow the same way. Animals had gone silent. In the deepest parts of the oceans, ancient creatures moved for the first time in thousands of years. Something had changed in the soul of the planet. But most terrifying of all, there was no sign of mercy. The Smiling One and the reborn Titans marched with purpose. They didn't need rest. They didn't need orders. They didn't speak. They just moved toward the stars. And behind them, Earth was no longer just Earth. It was becoming something else. A warning, a weapon, a storm ready to break open the galaxy. Mira sat in the command center of the United Human Defense Base, eyes wide as more reports came in. "Another Veltheri fleet lost," said the technician. "How many?" she asked. 700 ships, not destroyed. Just disappeared. No one spoke. Mira looked at the map. Entire systems were going dark. No battles, no signals, no signs of survivors. And all of it happened after the storm walked. "We didn't call for help," she whispered. "We opened the cage." On the Veltheri capital world, panic had turned into something worse. Silence. The Empress had locked herself in the throne room. Her advisors begged her to make a deal, to send an apology to Earth, to stop the madness. But she just sat on the floor, staring at an old book from their ancient history. On the first page was a drawing, a figure with no face, just a mouth smiling too wide, surrounded by stars that looked like they were on fire. The book called it The Storm That Ended Suns. We thought it was a myth, the Empress whispered. But we were wrong. So wrong. At the edge of Velthari space, Admiral Vellner watched the data feed as his fleet of 1,000 ships moved toward Earth. His orders were clear: destroy anything that came from that cursed world. We are the might of the Empire, he told his soldiers. We do not fear stories. We end them. But when they reached Earth's orbit, there was no one there. No ships. No satellites. Just the planet. Quiet. Too quiet. Then their sensors picked up something. Movement behind them. Ships. Huge ones. More than ever recorded before. But they didn't come from Earth. They came from inside dark space, a hidden part of reality, a place the Empire thought was empty. But it wasn't. And now it had opened. The storm had reached them. One by one, the Velthari ships vanished from Admiral Vellner's screen. He screamed into his comms. Return fire. Evasive action. Nothing worked. The enemy ships didn't even fire back. They simply existed, and things around them died. The light faded. Time slowed. Fear became a real thing that clawed at the mind. Admiral Vellner's last words were, "This isn't war. This is punishment." On a quiet moon, a small group of alien monks watched the sky. One of them whispered, "Long ago, the Divine warned us. Never wake the sleeping ones. Never speak the name of the laughing death. Never bring fear to Earth." Another monk looked up, shaking. But the Velthari did. They attacked the hospital ships. They killed the innocent. And Earth answered. Deep inside the core of Earth, machines older than any human technology began to move. Vaults unlocked. Gates opened. These were not weapons. These were prisons. And inside them, things had waited. Old things. Things the Titans themselves once feared. The smiling one stood in front of one of the open vaults. It placed a hand on the glowing symbol. "Wake up," it whispered. "It's time to hunt." The ground shook, and the vault began to laugh. Back in the stars, entire sectors were now known as dead zones. No ships returned from them. No light escaped them. Only one message came through, a single line sent in every language. The storm is not here to fight. It is here to finish. Mira stood outside the base, looking at the sky. Black clouds still circled overhead. The stars looked different now. "We should feel safe," said a young officer. "The enemy is losing. Earth is winning." Mira shook her head. "No, this isn't victory." "Then what is it?" She looked at him and said, "It's what happens when mercy dies." In a distant part of the galaxy, the last Velthari generals gathered. Only 6 of them remained. "What do we do?" One asked. "We can't win. Our fleets are broken. Our people are hiding." "We surrender," another said. "To who?" "Earth." "No," the third general said slowly. "Not Earth. To whatever that thing is. The one that smiles." The room fell silent. But even surrender wouldn't matter. Because the storm wasn't looking for peace. It was looking for balance. And balance meant justice. And justice meant the ones who hurt the innocent had to be erased. Completely. No trials. No second chances. Just silence. The smiling one and the Titan stood before a black portal in space. The final gate. Beyond it was the heart of the Velthari Empire. The source of their power. The place where the orders were given to bomb the hospital ships. The smiling one raised a hand. The portal opened. And through it marched not just Titans, but the old ones, the dark ones, the monsters that even the divine feared. And as they moved forward, the stars behind them began to go out. One by one, the sky above Earth was no longer filled with stars. There was only darkness, not the quiet kind, but a living shadow. a presence so vast it made every other thought vanish. It reached out from the black portal, expanding like the jaws of a beast, swallowing entire star systems. The stars themselves seemed to be shrinking, their light dimming, flickering out, one by one. Mira stood on the observation deck of the United Human Defense Base, her breath caught in her throat as she watched the impossible unfold. The stars were being consumed. It wasn't a natural event. This was intentional. "The storm, it's here," she whispered. Beside her, a technician turned pale, his hand shaking as he worked frantically to adjust the communication systems. "We're losing contact with every fleet, every station. We can't reach anyone." "Where's the military?" Mira asked, her voice rising. "We don't have any military left," he replied, his words barely audible. "It's all gone. Vanished." Elsewhere, the remaining fleets of the Empire, the ones who had survived the first wave of the storm, were now staring into the abyss. The darkness was swallowing them whole. Admiral Vellner had survived the initial wave, but not without consequences. His ship, the Fury of Velfar, was damaged, its hull cracking under the immense gravitational pull of the storm. And yet, he still moved forward. "We can't stop it," he muttered. "The darkness doesn't care about our weapons. It doesn't even notice us." His crew stood frozen, unable to do anything but watch as their world was undone. The ships that once filled the stars were now barely shadows, fading in and out of existence. Then, a voice came over the intercom. "It's not just the ships," it said, a deep, resonant tone that filled the entire ship. "You're not just fighting the storm. You're fighting us." Admiral Vellner turned to his crew, his eyes wide with realization. "The ancient ones." The voice continued, "the ones who laughed when you dared to harm the innocent. The ones who came not to fight, but to make you understand what true power is. You thought you could wipe out the weak. Now you will know what happens when you destroy what should never be touched." And then, as if on cue, the lights aboard the Fury of Velfar flickered and went out. The storm had arrived. On the ground below, the last remnants of humanity were facing something even worse. Not just the empty void of space, but the terror of what was coming for them. The Smiling One led the charge. Behind it, the Titans followed, but it wasn't just them. There were other creatures, beings who had existed for eons, dark, vast, and terrifying. Monsters who had been locked away for eternity, now unleashed on the universe. Mira knew it was too late. "There's no stopping them," she said, staring at the darkening sky. "We're not prepared for this." The planet rumbled beneath her feet. It wasn't an earthquake. This was different. The world itself was beginning to shift, like it was waking up from a long slumber. And it wasn't happy about what had happened to it. In space, the darkness had consumed everything. The Velthari fleets were gone. The once glorious empire was reduced to scattered fragments, lost to the void. The storm didn't destroy. It erased. There was no trace left of the empire's once proud ships, only the endless, suffocating blackness. But the worst part wasn't the destruction. It was the feeling of inevitability. The universe had already decided. The darkness didn't need to fight. It simply had to exist, and that was enough. The galaxy had always known the divine would come to enforce balance, but no one had expected this. No one had expected the day the stars would go out. Mira's hand gripped the railing tighter as she watched the end unfold. The moment that should have been a victory for humanity had turned into a nightmare. She had hoped that Earth could stand up against the galaxy, that they could defend themselves. But against this force, there was no hope. "We called them," she whispered. "We called the monsters that even the gods feared." And yet, amidst the chaos, there was something strange, something stirring within the depths of the galaxy. As the darkness spread, an answer began to echo from deep inside the storm. It wasn't the roar of destruction. It wasn't the screeching of dying worlds. It was laughter. Not the terrifying laughter of the Smiling One, but something different. A higher, more ancient laughter, resonating through the fabric of the universe itself. "The storm has come," the voice said, "but it is not the end. Not yet. You have forgotten the rules." Mira felt the cold chill of dread slip down her spine. She turned to the others around her. "This isn't over. They haven't finished yet." Meanwhile, deep within the core of Earth, the last of the ancient machines powered up. The ones who had waited, who had seen this moment coming. They activated the final phase of their protocol. They weren't here to defend. They weren't here to stop the storm. They were here to protect what was left. The machines began to hum. The ground vibrated. A long-forgotten voice whispered through the bass, "The final reckoning has begun." And as Mira and the others stared at the sky, they knew. The true battle wasn't against the darkness, but against what had been awakened. It was a war not for survival, but for the soul of the galaxy. The silence that followed the dark storm felt almost worse than the chaos itself. The galaxy, once filled with light and noise, was now a void, a space of oppressive stillness. Earth's defenders, all who had hoped to fight, were left waiting, waiting for the inevitable, waiting for the storm to sweep them away. But the storm wasn't just a storm anymore. It was something worse. The living entity that had taken form, something far older and more terrifying than anything they could have imagined. The laughter that had echoed from the depths of the void still lingered in their minds, a chilling reminder of the monster they had called. "Where are the others?" Mira asked quietly, her voice trembling. She was no longer standing alone. Behind her, a few of the surviving soldiers and officers had gathered, eyes wide, their expressions a mix of fear and confusion. "There's no one left," one of the soldiers said softly, his voice shaky. "No fleets, no reinforcements. We're the last ones." Mira felt the weight of those words like a physical blow. The last line of defense, the last hope for Earth's survival, stood in front of a storm that had wiped out everything. It was hard to imagine that Earth had ever been a thriving, hopeful place, teeming with life and ambition. Now it felt like a dying ember in the universe's cold embrace. And yet something inside her refused to let go of that ember. Even in the face of total destruction, she could feel the stirring of something, a pulse of energy deep inside the planet. The machines, the ones that had waited for this moment, were awakening. Slowly, the ground beneath them trembled, not with the quakes of destruction, but with something different, something alive. "The final reckoning," Mira murmured under her breath. The words had echoed from the machines, a warning, a promise. Across the galaxy, in the heart of the storm, the creatures that had once been gods now stood silent. The smiling one, towering over the stars, grinned without a sound, its massive form unshaken by the destruction it had wrought. Behind it, the Titans, once creatures of legend, roared into the void, but their cries were drowned by the laughter that had spread across the galaxy. And then, in the heart of this chaos, a voice rose above the din. A voice so powerful, so ancient, it shook the very foundation of space itself. "You have disturbed the wrong species," the voice echoed, reverberating through the dark matter storm. "The reckoning you have called forth is not the end. It is only the beginning." The smiling one turned, its eyes narrowing. It had expected to hear fear, but instead, it heard defiance. Back on Earth, Mira's heart raced as she realized that the machines were not just protecting the planet. They were preparing to fight. The bass rumbled, and the air thickened with tension. For the first time in what felt like forever, the human survivors had hope. They weren't going to lie down and let the storm consume them. No, they had something stronger on their side. The ground cracked open, revealing massive structures hidden deep beneath the Earth's surface. These were the machines that had been lying in wait, ancient constructs designed not just to protect, but to strike back against those who would threaten the balance of the galaxy. Mira's eyes widened. This is what we were waiting for. The machines, silent and motionless moments before, began to activate. Their limbs shifted with incredible speed, and their glowing eyes flared to life. They weren't just machines. They were weapons, weapons unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And they were ready to fight. Above, the storm raged, but it was no longer as intimidating. The creatures within it, the once untouchable beings, now hesitated, their laughter faltering. They had sensed it, the shift in the balance. Something had awakened, and it wasn't something they could easily defeat. "You have called for war." The voice boomed again, this time much closer. "Now you will feel what it means to challenge the unchallenged." The creatures within the storm knew they had underestimated the humans. They had thought they could wipe them out in one stroke. But now they realized that humanity had something even greater, something hidden away, something ancient and far more terrifying than anything they had faced before. The machines moved forward, synchronized in their movements. They weren't just powerful. They were unstoppable. Their energy pulsed like a heartbeat, stronger with each passing second. Each step they took sent shockwaves through the ground, shaking the air with raw force. It wasn't just a defense. It was a counterattack. The smiling one turned its attention back to the darkness. It felt the shift, an ancient energy stirring beneath the surface of Earth. It had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now it would pay the price. "Prepare for the final war," the voice called, its tone cold and full of fury. "You have awakened what should have stayed hidden." The storm rippled as the battle began. Earth's final defense. The machines were not alone. The remaining humans, the survivors, joined in. They fought not just for their lives, but for their world, their future, and the galaxy they had been born into. And the storm, that ancient darkness, had underestimated the power of human will. Mira stood tall, feeling the heat of the machine's power wash over her. It was time to fight back, not with fear, but with everything humanity had. She could hear the voices of her fallen comrades, the people who had believed in this day. They hadn't given up. Neither would she. "This is our reckoning," she whispered to herself, "and we will win."